My family refused to help me with my startup because I was investing in my cousin. But now that it failed and my company is successful, they call my company the family business. I'm Zachary. I'm 34 years old, I'm a male, and I grew up in a family it's nice to live comfortably. My dad had several businesses spread around the city, real estate, retail, and a few more. My mom owns several buildings. Yes, plural. My grandparents, although they weren't that rich, were the first entrepreneurs that managed to scrape together enough success to give my parents their initial push. There's this expectation that if you're born into this family, you either inherit something and don't screw it up, or start your own empire. Naturally, I wanted to go with the latter. I wasn't a naive kid dreaming of opening a beach shack in the Bahamas. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I had a plan, a solid one, in my opinion. Cybersecurity. Ever since I was 14 and accidentally hacked into my school server to change my arrest record, I discovered I have a knack for computers. I went to college, I got a degree in computer science, and spent hours obsessing over encryption, data breaches, and programming. After graduating, I realized that cybersecurity isn't just an interesting career, it's also lucrative. Every business needs it, every bank, every hospital. It's like selling umbrellas in a world where it always rains. Data breaches. I had a vision, a potential client base, and a detailed business plan that I claimed would impress anyone. But here was the problem. I needed money to start. A lot of money. I wasn't asking for millions. That's okay. Just enough to rent an office space, hire a small team, and invest in initial software and hardware. I could have started with less, sure, but I had this very clear picture in my head of what the company would look like. One morning, I approached my parents. We were sitting in the living room, and I pitched my idea. It had graphs, market research, and passion. I asked them for a loan. I didn't want a gift. I didn't want free money. It was a loan that I would pay back with interest once the business took off. They said, "Zachy, we love you, but we don't think you have what it takes to run a business." They didn't say it meanly. My dad sighed as he said it, like it physically hurt him to reject me. My mom gave me one of those pitiful looks that moms give when they think you're being adorably naive. My dad explained that being a good programmer doesn't automatically make you a good entrepreneur. Running a company involves running it, managing accounts, employees, investors, losses, all those boring, no-fun parts. And according to them, I just didn't have that spark. For them, investing in me wasn't investing, it was throwing money away. Not gonna lie, that hurt. At first, I was angry, very angry, but I still didn't want to give up on my dream. A month after my parents rejected my application for funding, my cousin, Bernard, was getting married. A big, lavish wedding. 3 days of events, champagne fountains. Quite the spectacle. At one point, I was standing with my parents near the buffet table when Bernard approached us, greeted my parents, shook my dad's hand, and then said, "Uncle, Auntie, thank you again for believing in me and helping me with the funding for my hotel business. I couldn't have done it without you." I stood there, looking at Bernard, as if he just confessed to being a time traveler. My parents laughed nervously, said something polite, and quickly changed the subject. I had applied for funding. They said no. But Bernard got financing for a hotel, a damn hotel. I left there with a lame excuse because I felt betrayed. Not because financing Bernard, good for him, I guess, but because they wouldn't do the same for me. They trusted Bernard, but me, their own son. Apparently, it wasn't worth the risk. At some point, my grandma found me sitting there. "Zachary, what are you doing here? Why aren't you inside enjoying the wedding?" And there's something about grandmas. You can't lie to them. You just can't. So I told her everything. She just let me get it off my chest. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Zachary, sometimes people see potential in others because they see a version of themselves in them. Your father might see a younger version of himself in Bernard, but that doesn't mean that you're not capable. You're different, and being different isn't bad. It's just different." He squeezed my hand and added, "You're smart. You work hard. One day you're going to build something amazing. It'll just be on your own terms." I know it sounds like a lot of cliché phrases, but that was just what I needed at that moment in the day.
After the wedding, I was still in this weird emotional haze, half motivated by what my grandma said, but also half devastated. I was sitting on my couch when my phone rang. It was my grandpa. Now, my grandpa isn't the type of person to call just to chat, so naturally, I freaked out. I asked him if everything was okay, and he said everything was fine, and that he just wanted me to come and see him. I just said, "Okay, Grandpa, I'll be there in 2 hours." When I got to his house, my grandma opened the door and gave me a warm smile. "Come in, Zachary. Your grandpa's in his study." He was sitting in his chair when I walked in, but he immediately got up and hugged me. At that moment, I started to relax a bit. My grandpa wasted no time on small talk. He said, "Your grandma told me about what happened at the wedding and how you feel about your business plans." "Oh, so that's what it was about." I nodded, trying to keep a neutral expression. He continued, "I want you to know something. I started my first business with nothing but an old van and a loan from my uncle. It wasn't easy, and everyone thought I was going to fail. But I didn't. And you know why?" I shook my head. "Because someone believed in me. Sometimes just one person can make all the difference." Then he reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a checkbook, wrote something down, and handed it to me. Now, I'm not going to tell you the exact amount, but let's just say it wasn't pocket money. It wasn't all I needed to launch my cybersecurity company, but it was enough to get started, enough to make a real difference. I stared at the check for what seemed like 5 full minutes. I finally managed to say, "Grandpa, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he said. "This isn't just money. It's trust. I'm investing in you." I was trying so hard not to lose my composure, but my grandpa just stood up, came over, hugged me, and said, "Make us proud." On the walk back home, I kept looking at the check. It wasn't just money, it was proof that someone believed in me. After getting the initial funding from my grandpa, I knew I had to be smart with every penny. I didn't splurge on fancy desks or modern office chairs. We started small. I contacted my 2 best friends, Adam and Lewis. We pooled the little bit we had saved and rented an office. Tiny and cramped in the most dangerous area of the city. But hey, it was ours. Those first 2 years were brutal. We worked 14 to 16-hour days. We barely got a break on the weekends. So I survived on instant noodles and vending machine snacks. Lewis was on call after call. Adam was buried in code. And I did a lot of things at once. Our first big client was a mid-sized financial company that had just been hacked. We managed to repair their systems, recover their data, and prevent future breaches. That project gave us enough money to move to a slightly nicer office. Little by little, we started gaining traction. Word of mouth started spreading. And we started getting bigger clients. About 4 years later, we hit our first small sliver. We had enough revenue to consider expanding. We opened our second office in a nearby city, and a year after that, we opened a third in another major city. So we were no longer just a makeshift startup. We were a real company. At that time, we also started a cybersecurity consulting firm. It seemed like the natural next step. Companies they were not only asking us to fix breaches, but they also wanted to proactively prevent them. And let me tell you, the consulting money feels different. About 5 years into the business, I was finally in a position to pay my grandparents back. I drove over to their house, check in hand, and I said, "This is yours with interest." But I didn't stop there. These 2 people had given me everything when no one else would. So I bought them a brand new house, nothing ridiculously extravagant, but cozy, comfortable, and in a neighborhood that they had always loved. Watching them walk around their new home, pointing out little details that they liked, was one of the most rewarding moments of my life. As our cybersecurity business thrived, Bernard's Hotel, no, the pandemic completely crushed the industry, and Bernard's Hotel never fully recovered. Apparently, my parents gave him even more money to help out. But despite their efforts, and I honestly feel bad for him, the hotel eventually closed. So last weekend, we were celebrating my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary because they are literally the reason that I have everything that I have today. I wanted to make sure that I continued to thank them.
Nothing. I rented a beautiful hotel ballroom, I hired Catherine, I organized a live band, and invited basically all of the family friends and even some old neighbors that they hadn't seen in years. Honestly, planning this event felt more emotional than some of the biggest business deals I've closed. The party was spectacular. Everyone was dressed up, the food was amazing, and my grandparents were so happy, which is all that mattered. But then my parents entered the picture. At some point during the night, I overheard my dad talking to one of his old friends. When his friend said that he should be proud of me, he responded talking about family values and how their support and guidance had set me on the right path. He also mentioned about how it's practically a family business now. Sorry, I didn't hear wrong. As the night went on, I kept hearing snippets of conversations where my parents painted themselves as the backbone of my success. We always knew he would do something great. We supported him every step of the way. It's what we do as a family. We lift each other up. And the punchline? My dad said, everything is thanks to the initial support of the family. Look, I'm not saying I needed my parents to kneel in front of me or apologize with tears in their eyes or anything like that, but to take credit for something that they actively refused to support, that did not sit well with me at all. I tried to enjoy the rest of the night, but I was really angry. So, I changed my speech. I had originally planned something simple, just a heartfelt tribute to Grandma and Grandpa. But after everything I heard that night, I knew I couldn't let it go. I started off on a light tone, made a couple of jokes, mentioned how their marriage was older than the internet, and I talked about the love and respect that they always showed each other. But then I got serious. And here is the part of my speech. You see, Grandma and Grandpa didn't just build a life together. They built a legacy of love, trust, and most importantly, faith in people. When I had a dream and everyone else slammed the door in my face, they opened it. Not only did they believe in my idea, they believed in me, and everything that I have today, I owe to their faith in me when no one else did. I paused. My parents were looking at me with smiles frozen on their faces. So tonight, I want to propose a toast to Grandma and Grandpa. The only two people who believed in me when no one else did. This success is theirs and no one else's. Grandma was crying. Grandpa nodded with that proud, quiet smile of his. And my parents were forcing smiles through gritted teeth. About 15 minutes into the speech, my dad found me near the dessert table. He was basically yelling at me. What the hell was that speech? Were you trying to humiliate us in front of everyone? Humiliate you? All I just spoke the truth. You guys didn't believe in me, but Grandma and Grandpa did. My mom joined in. You didn't have to air out family issues in front of everyone. You made us look really bad. At this point, I was already biting my tongue, trying not to explode. But then my dad said, "You act like we did nothing for you. Gave you a good life, a good education. How dare you make us look like the villains in your little success story?" At first I didn't scream, but my voice definitely got louder. You know what? You guys didn't believe in me. You had the money, but you gave it to Bernard for his hotel without a second thought. And when it failed, they gave him even more. But when I came to you with my idea, you told me I wasn't the business type. At that moment, I noticed the room had gone completely silent. The guests were all staring. My cousin Bernard from the failed hotel was awkwardly sipping his drink in the corner as if he wanted to disappear. My dad pointed at me. "You're being ungrateful." And I replied, completely losing control. Ungrateful? Why not? I'm not ungrateful. I'm simply saying out loud what everyone already knows. My chest felt tight. My face was hot. And I realized I had just caused a scene at what was supposed to be a celebration for my grandparents. I looked around and saw my grandma looking at me with a soft, sad expression. Not disappointed, just sad. My grandpa had his arm around her, as if he was trying to keep her calm. That's when the guilt hit me. I didn't say another word, just turned around, walked out of the ballroom, and didn't even grab my coat. Got into my car, slammed the door, and sat there for a few minutes, staring the steering wheel, trying to calm me. That night, I didn't sleep. I had the argument over and over again in my
head. The next morning, I got a text from my grandma. "Zachary, we love you so much. Please don't feel bad about last night. We understand." But that didn't really make me feel any better. I've been thinking about it a lot. Read it. I went overboard. Ruined a night that was supposed to be for my grandparents. Update 1. I think it's only fair to give y'all an update because you guys have been so good about commenting on my post. I thought things would calm down after that night. I thought maybe we'd all reflect a little and then have an adult, proper conversation. But no, my parents decided to go nuclear. It started small. A cousin texted me something like, "Hey, Zach, it's true that you manipulated Grandma and Grandpa into giving you money." That's what the uncle said. At first I laughed because, come on, it sounded ridiculous. But then the calls kept coming. An aunt messaged me on Facebook saying she was disappointed in how I used my grandparents' emotions to get money out of them. So I called my grandma right away because she needed to know if I was okay. She said, "Don't worry about what they say. The rest of us know the truth, and that's all that matters." Honestly, she's the sweetest woman in the world, and hearing her voice calmed me down a little, but I couldn't ignore the fact that my parents were out there making up a twisted narrative. I'm not someone who likes confrontation, despite what my meltdown on the anniversary might suggest, but this time I couldn't let it go. I called my parents and asked them what the hell are they telling everyone? Why are people calling me telling me to manipulate Grandma and Grandpa? To this, my mom replied, "Well, you didn't cry with them. You made them feel bad for you. That's manipulation." I told her I wasn't crying with them. I was telling them my situation because that's called having emotions. I heard my dad talking in the background. "You can interpret it however you want, Zachary, but everyone sees you for who you really are." Now, I told him, "Okay, fine. Say whatever you want to everyone. I'm tired of trying to explain," and hung up. I thought hanging up would bring some peace, but it didn't. For the next week, the rumors only got worse. A relative said he heard me threatening to cut up Grandma and Grandpa if they didn't give me money. Another said that I bragged about how I manipulated them, and I laughed about it afterward. I felt like I was losing my mind. I mean, how do you fight something like that? It's so absurd it almost seems comical, except it's not funny when the people you care about start believing it. One day, my cousin Bernard, yeah, that cousin, even called me. Said, "Hey man, I know things are complicated right now, but you think that you could talk to Uncle and Aunt and fix this?" I said, "There's nothing to fix, Bernard. They know the truth. They're just choosing to ignore it." I texted my parents. "I can't do this anymore. You've made the choice to spread these lies, and I can't keep trying to convince you otherwise. I'm walking away from this relationship for now. I love you both, but I can't keep letting this hurt me." And that was it. I blocked you both on social media because you were posting passive-aggressive things about me. I stopped responding to family members who were clearly just looking for gossip. I'm in a weird place right now. If anything happens, I'll keep you posted. Update 2. It's been a while. Wow, what's happened? I wish I could come back with better news, but life doesn't always want to give you good news. My granddad passed away last month. The only good thing I can say about the whole thing is that he left in his sleep. In a way, it was peaceful, but man, it still hit me like a truck. Needless to say in this update, how important he's been to me. And I'm not speaking for the money, but the support, and as an example of a person. As soon as I received the news, I packed a bag and drove straight to my granddad's. She looked so small and fragile when I walked in, but she still managed to give me a weak smile and a hug. I don't think I've ever hugged someone that tight in my life. Organizing the funeral was hard, but I needed to do it for my granddad. My parents were there too, and although we were civilized, there was this weird tension in the air, like we all knew there was unresolved issues, but no one had the energy to address it in the midst of the grieving. The funeral itself was beautiful, honestly. Hundreds of people attended. My granddad was one of those genuinely good souls, and to see how many lives he touched was overwhelming. Old business partners, childhood friends, neighbors, people came from all over to pay their respects. I tried to stay strong during the praise, but man, I lost my composure halfway through. My grandmother told me, "He squeezed his hand the whole time, and I'm so thankful he was there because I don't think I would have been able to otherwise." Now, this is where things got a little complicated. My grandpa wasn't incredibly wealthy or anything, but he did own some property, including a beautiful lake house. It's the kind of place you'd see on postcards, a wooden dock, big windows overlooking the water, surrounded by trees. My dad spent a lot of time there growing up, and even I have memories of running around on the dock, fishing with Grandpa, and roasting marshmallows by the campfire. So during the will reading, the lawyers started listing off assets. Then we got to the lake house. My grandpa left it to me and my cousin Laura. For context, Laura is my dad's sister's daughter. She's honestly really cool, someone that I got along with. But the moment my dad heard the words, Zachary and Laura will be sharing ownership of a lake house, I swear I saw his jaw clench. He didn't say anything at the time, but his face said it. He was all furious, like really furious. After the reading, he walked out without saying a word to me. My mom followed him out, and I just sat there awkwardly with Laura and my grandma. For the next few days, while I stayed with my grandma, my dad completely avoided me. If we were in the same room, he acted like I was invisible. My mom would give me these weird half smiles, but didn't say much either. It's unbelievable to me because it's not like I asked for the lake house. I didn't even know Grandpa was going to let me have it. But somehow I felt like my dad saw it as another personal attack, like Grandpa was taking my side in some imaginary war. Laura and I talked about it one night over tea, and she admitted that she felt awkward too, because her mom, my dad's sister, wasn't exactly happy about the will either. But at least Laura's mom didn't act all cold. One afternoon while I was helping my grandma organize some of Grandpa's old things, she sat down with me and said, "Your grandpa loved your dad very much, Zachary. But he also saw how hard you worked, how much you fought to prove yourself. He wanted you to have something that meant a lot to him." I think she knew I was feeling guilty about the whole situation, like if I had inadvertently caused an even bigger wedge between my dad and me. But my grandma said something that stuck with me. "Your grandpa wasn't taking sides. He was choosing love. He loved you and he loved Laura. That's why he wanted them both to have a place where they could always feel close to him." The night before we headed home, I met my dad in the kitchen. He was making tea and I was filling a glass of water. For a moment, it was all silence. Neither of us said anything. But then he spoke. "You know, that lake house was supposed to stay in the family. It was supposed to be ours." I replied, "It still is, Dad. I'm not selling it. I'm not making it into a rental property. It's still ours." He didn't reply. He just stirred his tea, put down the spoon, and it came out. Update 3. There are a few things I need to attend to now since my dad has decided to sue me. He believes that the lake house belongs to him, even though my grandfather left it to me and my cousin Laura. I can't talk too much about the details because it's all very complicated, illegal, but I'll try to give you an idea of what's going on. It all started when my dad started showing up at my house unannounced, demanding that I hand over the lake house. At first, I thought maybe he was just upset and wanted to talk, but when I refused to give in, he started making threats. He told me that my grandfather's will was wrong and that I was wrong for not sharing the house with him. It was like a switch had flipped in him. Then the legal papers came in. I won't go into details, but basically my dad's legal team sent me official documents accusing me of improperly obtaining the lake house and demanding that I hand it over. He claims that it's his inheritance, not mine, and that I manipulated my grandfather leaving it to me or whatever. It's ridiculous. No, my grandfather clearly left the house to Laura and I. My mom keeps trying to play mediator, trying to convince me to give in and just give the house to my dad so we can work through this. I'm at a point where I don't think there's going back. I don't think we'll ever be able to fix whatever is broken. I don't think you'll have a post for me during this time, at least until everything settles down and I can give you more details on all this. Update 4. This update comes a long time after the last one. And believe me, my father sold part of his company to a relative. I think it might be of interest to some people who asked about it. Precisely because that would have meant that the whole trial with my father had ended earlier, but it didn't until now that I can speak to you freely about everything that has happened. Well, no, my father was unable to invalidate my grandfather's will and get the house, which would have been perfect for him, as I will explain later. The lawsuit should have lasted quite little, really, but my father had good lawyers, at least in the art of delaying things, and it went on longer than usual. I think he was hoping that I would finally throw in the towel and tell him that the house would be his, something that he couldn't have done anyway because it also belongs to my cousin. But not even my aunt joined this crusade of my father's, and when my grandmother told me that my grandfather really wanted me to have it, I couldn't give up. Luckily, my grandmother's testimony was useful for the trial, since my father had nothing, absolutely nothing. The only thing he's done is spend an impressive amount of money that lawyers don't have, but he also managed to get me to spend. But If something good about everything he did for me is that in addition to using his rhetoric that I had manipulated my grandfather, the family also expanded it to more people, to the point that it was affecting my business. So we played a game of chess and sued him for defamation and for damages. I don't know the value of the house that Grandpa left us because we haven't had it appraised since we don't want to sell it, but I'm sure that what he lost in lawyers and what he had to pay for my lawsuit, that I won, has been much more expensive. Yes, we're talking about those kinds of amounts. And this is particularly bad for my father because part of his obsession with my grandpa's house wasn't the memories. He wanted to make money from it. He thought he could get it to sell it. I mean, my grandpa's body wasn't cold yet, and he was already arguing about the inheritance because he needed the money. The reason for this is that the money he lent my cousin along with the subsequent loans left him in a delicate financial position, and the fight with me made it even worse. Although he can't blame anyone but himself since he brought it on himself. He could have used the money he spent on lawyers to pay off the debt and still have some financial stability. My parents have had to sell part of their house. They used some of the money to pay my lawsuit and the rest to cover other debts. They have really been financially affected by that bad investment. They still have my father's business, which, as far as I know, is profitable. However, he has been looking to sell part of it to alleviate some debts. Someone in the family suggested that I buy it so that the business remains in the family, but having my father as a partner is not one of the most tempting ideas at the moment. Besides, it is not an industry that I like or one in which I can contribute something with my knowledge. At least I know that my father will not have the money to continue suing for anything that occurs to him. Addition. My father sold part of his company to a relative. I think it might be of interest to some people who asked about it.